Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Automotive Therapist. I'm your host, Scott Branford, and thank you for joining in. This podcast is designed to listen to your experiences with auto related subjects from driving to owning and beyond. Stick around, the Automotive Therapist is next. Hello, everyone out there in Motorland. I didn't pronounce that land. Sorry, I'm a little frozen today in the Northeast here. I don't know where you may be listening to this today, but thanks for joining the Automotive Therapist. I'm your illustrious host, Scott Branford, and for the next maybe 10 minutes or so, I'm going to try to cover the latest topic for our latest episode. This covers a big gambit, I'm sure, of different lifestyles and people and cars and that kind of thing. It's funny when I come up with the names of these episodes, I'm sure it rings bells, resoundingly rings bells with people that know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to just do, a little bit of my once upon a times anyway. And again, we wish that, you like, subscribe, and chime in with your comments. And of course, I think everybody or a lot of people can relate to this. So, how many people out there really are just kind of saving their car? You have that collector car, that classic car, maybe even a car that's been sitting around in your yard or garage or driveway. And, it's sentimental value. I mean, this is what the Automotive Therapist is all about. I'm here to help you people, with therapy. I'm kidding, of course. But seriously, it's just, there's tons and tons of people that have old cars and sometimes new cars. I mean, you have people out there that, maybe bought a really nice car as a trophy for themselves, and all of a sudden, they've fallen on hard times. A lot of us have fallen on hard times. So you went out and you bought that new sports car, that Jag, Camaro, Aston, Porsche, whatever it may be. And it's sitting there now because you really just can't drive it. You can't afford the insurance. Maybe it's close to a repossession thing. And that's a whole different gambit and area about, I'll do anything to keep my car in terms of repossessions. And we've seen how many uh, reels on social media with people who'll do anything to keep their car and put it someplace where, the repo man can't find it. But I realize I'm bouncing around here a little bit. But, I have a friend right now, and he was in the printing business with his dad, and I mean they made a small fortune. They're from South America. He's my best friend, and I love the guy. And I said to him the other day, I said, 60 Minutes should really do an expose on you and your family. How you came here from South America, got into the printing business. His father is an Albert Einstein of printing. His dad's probably in his 80s, and he looks like a movie star. His father, he never gets old. But the reason I mention all this is because they had a thriving business, two shifts in Westchester County, and they printed invoices and cover letters, pamphlets, journals, guides, brochures, all that when it was a big to do. And of course, the advent of the internet kind of ruined all that. It certainly changed it, and I don't think they were up to speed in terms of diversifying quickly enough. So, bottom line is, the business went defunct. They lost property, they had investments and stuff, and they're not alone. I mean, this is happening all over America and all over the world for that matter. But, circling back around and, trying to keep a car, and, my friend's got a couple of nice cars. He's got an old anniversary Corvette, a Fox Body Mustang, which he loves. Dad's got an old 450 SL Mercedes. And, they really don't have any money. They live up in Westchester, and they're just holding on to these cars for dear life because it's a throwback to the times of success, and the times of good times, driving a car around top down on a nice day. And, you really think about all the folks out there, including, I'm sure, as I said before, some people listening to this right now that are going through the same things. And, sometimes it's not always people that, that are, they're falling on hard times. I have another friend He's fairly well off. And he's probably got about 10 cars and they've been sitting for 20 years. But this is all, kind of a throwback to what goes on in your mind if you're a car enthusiast. You've had these cars. I mean, they're deeper than children because children grow up and they get old and go out on their own and start their own families. And by and large, you really don't have the same connection with your kids that you do with your cars because the cars have stayed the same. So, but we talk, and he's got his car parked someplace, and he's got to really every month try to figure out how he's going to get a few dollars up, to save the car, to keep the car in storage. I mean, literally, to get it back on the road, it's going to be $5,000 or more just to get it, cranked and going. And I think about people out in the Midwest or out in California on the West Coast, even people in Europe, maybe in Norway, the Netherlands, that have cars laying around, and they just whatever happens, I'm going to keep this car. And I'm trying to think, I mean, I have a couple of old cars myself. It's kind of like saving the whales or, the stepchildren of cars because they're really not valuable, but, they're mine, just like anybody else's cars are theirs. But, they're in a little bit of disarray, disrepair, but you keep them going. And, that's another kind of a quadrant into itself where people have old cars that they just keep running barely. And then, of course, on the flip side, the most grandiose side is when you have a 1960s car that's really been restored to better condition than it was made from the factory. It was a joke we used to say at car shows. When you saw a car, the guy at the factory just fell down because if you ever saw this car, the car was never built like it was restored. But yeah, so it's we want you to really again, this podcast is about commenting, chiming in. I want to know your stories. I want to know where your car is, where the car you've had sitting for 6 months or 6 years, where it is, what it's like, what it is, what it needs. And this is what it's all about. This is car culture at its finest. And again, people are just out there hanging out, trying to make things happen. And just trying to think of some other stories because I go through my Amazon brain forest. By the way, does anybody out there have Amazon brain forest? I don't know if you really know what that is. That's where when you try to think of something, it's like you take a machete and you're cutting through your cerebrum or cerebellum to try to remember stuff. But again, that's a joke. But I digress. I guess I had an old Cadillac Eldorado. I remember many years ago, and I kept that in my father's driveway until he just told me one day. He says, "You got to get that junk out of here, otherwise you're going to be moving." So, I remember I had to move the car, and eventually it went bye bye. And of course, that's another tangent into itself about people that have had cars so long, and what do you really do at the end? What's the end game? Can you sell them for something? Does anybody really want it? Does it go to recycle? Um, and again, there's plenty of that activity going on out there too. Um, and the other thing I wanted to say was, I don't know where you are in the world. I hope people are listening all over the world. I hope it's really nice where you are. We live in the Northeast here. I grew up here, and I'm just ready to vacate. I can't stand the cold anymore. But it's great to see other places in the world that are nice and warm and beachy and sunny and birds flying around and AI stuff. It's all good. But we want to hear from you. Let's see, we're about not quite 10 minutes into this podcast. Uh, but again, and I can keep talking, but I want to hear from you folks out there. Please comment. Please send me stuff. This is what it's all about. And we're going to graduate this to another level come 26, where your participation is going to be done on a whole different level from a digital standpoint. But again, stay warm if you're in the Northeast. Stay cool if it's warm someplace else. I hope this podcast reaches every place from Canarsie to China, from Boston to Beijing. So everybody has cars all over the world. We want to hear from you. We want to make sure we have fun with this. And happy holidays to those that celebrate the holidays. And again, I'm Scott Branford for the Automotive Therapist. This is a short show today, but we'll get into some other stuff a little bit later. Take care, be safe, and drive safely. Thanks a lot.